Hello, good afternoon and welcome to our afternoon session panel, 3 p.m. BST, live here Friday, August 14th, on what is the very first VegfestUK Trade and Media Day online. And we are absolutely thrilled to be joined by yet more fantastic guests. We've had two excellent panels this morning. The whole Trade and Media Day is geared up for trade and media professionals that have interests within the plant-based and vegan sectors, and specifically the independents. And we are very, very fortunate to have the very kind sponsorship from Butte Island Cheese and Yayo Hemp Products. You'll find them in the exhibition hall. There's a number of fantastic exhibitors in the exhibition hall. There's also a chat room function later where you can meet like-minded people and talk about the various aspects that have been discussed today. There's some presentations available that are pre-recorded that you can watch anytime. And the show opens for another 30 days, so you can come back at any time or direct your colleagues to come and have a look. You can also invite your colleagues as we speak. One of the beauties of the online operation is that people can literally sign up and join at any time for free just by registering. So do invite your colleagues, especially if you think this particular panel is going to be of interest and use. And of course, this panel, we're looking at trends. So it's a really important aspect. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be able to welcome a very good colleague, David Pannell from Promote Vegan and the Vegan Business Tribe. David and his partner, Lisa, have put this panel together in what is very difficult circumstances for a number of us, and has been a ray of optimism and positive energy throughout this lockdown. And of course, our two guests who have joined us, sharing their much expertise and input for free, which we're very much grateful for. There will be a chance to ask some questions at the end, but without further ado, I shall hand over to David to introduce our two panelists, and I hope you enjoy what is on offer. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Tim, and what a brilliant introduction. And I love being called a ray of enthusiasm through a lot of the lockdown. I think I'm going to put that on my epitaph. Okay, so we're here today as part of VegfestUK's Summerfest Online, and we're talking about new vegan product trends. So I'm joined by two absolute experts today. So we've got, I'll just say a quick hello, then I'll get each to introduce themselves in a little bit more detail. So first we've got Louisianna from the Vegan Society, and she's the Insight and Commercial Policy Officer at the Vegan Society. Hello there, Louisianna. And we've also got Dan as well. And now Dan is an absolute legend in the vegan trading industry. So Dan is the owner of Alternative Stores, which is a successful offline and online family business. But Dan himself has also been vegan for over 5 decades. So Dan is going to be bringing us the long view here. And that's going to be really something we're going to try and dig down on a little bit. So let's just start off by saying hello. So Louisianna, just give me a quick 60-second introduction of who the Vegan Society are and what your role is there as an Insight and Commercial Policy Officer.
Yes, so very broadly, the Vegan Society, it was established 75 years ago in 1944. And I think what a lot of people may not know is that our founders actually created and defined the word vegan all those years ago. So at the core, we are an educational charity. We promote and also protect vegan lifestyles. We do this through many different ways, through campaign and policy work, nutrition outreach, published research, legal rights, and also with our volunteer network. So we do encompass a lot of areas. We've also got the vegan trademark, which I can see right behind your shoulder on the Promote Vegan sign. And this is a trademark scheme. It's been running for 30 years. And it's recently come out as the most trusted and recognised vegan trademark in the UK. They trademark everything, food, cosmetics, even yoga mats, honestly, anything you can think of. And my role at Society is I lead on policy issues which affect vegan businesses or our trademark clients. Most recently, this has been the debate around the meaty language for vegan and vegetarian products. And I also provide kind of data-led insights to the vegan market. And this can either be quite a general thing, or they could be specific to business needs. So yeah, lots of different things.
That's absolutely fantastic. And I'm so glad to have a Vegan Society on board today. Now, Dan, 1944, the Vegan Society started. Can you beat that?
Just not long ago. I personally came to veganism in 1968, age 16.
Wow.
However, I came to alternative stores just over 4 years ago as a customer with a company that had been going since around about 2008. It was started by a couple that were looking for footwear for vegans and especially for children. And they opened up alternative soles, which then became alternative stores because people wanted a little bit more. And now we specialize online and offline in footwear and all the products that are on our website. 4 years, during those 4 years, a lot of people have seen we had vegan festivals and fairs that I've traveled to many of the weekends, including VegFest. And unfortunately, we're not there at the moment, but we have a shop that people can come into. We have an online service, and alternative stores welcome so many people through its stores, especially people that are on journeys up to Northumberland. They come along and visit us on their holiday time.
That is absolutely fantastic, Dan, and I know we'll be sending some people through to your website at the end of the seminar as well. So just to give myself an introduction as well. So my name's David Pannell, and I do run Promote Vegan. We work mainly with high street brands and large food companies to help them better embrace the vegan marketplace, and that might be helping them understand what the vegan consumers want and how to better connect with them, but also to help their internal change management as well to move over to vegan offerings. When you're working with some large food companies, sometimes they have a little bit of a resistance to embrace plant-based and move into veganism. We're also, as Louisianna was mentioned, we're also the UK agent for the Vegan Society's vegan trademark scheme as well, which is fantastic, helping more companies get registered to that. And myself and my partner, Lisa, we also run Vegan Business Tribe, this is this one here, and that's where we help smaller vegan businesses with help and advice in a collective way. And have we just lost Dan? He's just disappeared off my screen, or is he there?
I've also lost him.
Okay, so we'll keep going and hope that Dan rejoins. I know we've got a separate admin, and if the admin's there and you see Dan trying to knock his way back in, let's see if we can get him back online. Okay, so I mean, I'll start with yourself, Louisianna. So we've seen a huge rise, in veganism, and I quite often use the Vegan Society statistics when I'm talking about the rise in veganism. Anyway, so the number of vegans in Great Britain, I think it quadrupled between 2014 and 2019. And we're now looking at over 1% of the population. So that's about 600,000 people in the UK alone who identify themselves as vegan. So what's behind this? As our insight officer, what's fueled the boom in the last couple of years in the vegan marketplace?
In my personal opinion, I think the environmental aspect has suddenly come very much into the spotlight. So that kind of started to be spoken about, I would say, about 5 or 6 years ago, when there was a lot of published research came out about the effect of animal agriculture on the environment. And I think that has become one of possibly the #1 reason, followed by health and then animals in a lot of the studies that I see. There was also documentaries such as Cowspiracy. I think that resonated with a lot of people. We've got vegan activists on social media, which are very much in tune with the younger generation and much more accessible, and all different kinds of people as well. I think we're kind of exposed to vegan people in many types of media, and it's making people realize that it's not just one type of person, and also there's nothing to be worried about or scared about. The information is out there, you just kind of have to look for it. I think we're very much still in the middle of the boom. I often see 2019 as being called the year of the vegan, but actually I think it's become even bigger since 2019. Very much becoming more mainstream, more high street retailers kind of getting their hands on it, becoming cheaper, and just being in places where it wasn't before. So even places such as vegan investment, and in the legal sphere as well. So we had a case in January where veganism was recognised as a ethical belief. So it's kind of started as a environmental thing which people have noticed, and now suddenly it's becoming even more different things which perhaps people didn't realise that it was involved with as well. So yeah, definitely even more exciting in 2020 than it's ever been before, and obviously I hope this trend will continue for years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Veganuary this year, 2020, I think there's like 400,000 people signed up to it. You know, that's absolutely massive. And when you see the stats coming about, you know, about veganism at the moment, you know, even 10% of children don't now eat meat, you know, which is a real, you know, great sign for the future, and a great sign, you know, for vegan products and vegan product trends in the future as well. So Dan, I can see you back, which is fantastic. So sorry, we lost you there for a minute. We're just talking about the rise in veganism and the boom in the marketplace, and what we believe the reason is for that happening. You know, why are so many people looking at veganism at the moment?
Oh, well, they're looking for health. They're looking because of climate change. They're looking because of animal welfare, which has been all to the fore, especially with a lot of the films that are now available.
Yes.
That's what's driving people to embrace a plant-based lifestyle. Things have changed a lot though over the last 5 decades. When I started, you could go out for a vegan meal and it was be rice and vegetables. You could do it with a couple of tins and a packet of rice. You'd go to a big supermarket, not a supermarket, a big store like Phoenix. You've got one in London, you've got one in Newcastle. Get a salad sandwich and it would have a slice of ham in it. Salad itself was lettuce, tomato, cucumber and cress, and nothing else would ever be put on a plate. There's so many different things, but overall I think that health has come to the forefront. We all want to live a happier and healthier life. We are looking at what we're eating. Animal welfare is certainly up there. We do hear it in the news so much. And climate change, you can't get away from climate change, what with the rebellions all over. And we all know that there's a big link between our lifestyle and climate change.
Absolutely. And I think when you've got so many high profile vegans at the moment, you know, these celebrities, they've got huge platforms and they're talking about it from every single different, you know, area. You've got people like, you know, Lewis Hamilton, who is very much talking about, you know, performance and how that helps him think quicker even. You know, you've got Joaquin Phoenix, who is very much about the animal welfare. But even, you know, pop stars like Billie Eilish, they're talking to such a huge range of people now. And I think that combined with being vegan is now easier than ever. You know, just as you were saying, I can go to any, you know, almost any high food restaurant and find a good, a high street restaurant and find a good vegan option. It's not always a healthy vegan option, but I can at least order one. I can at least find one. And it's got cheaper as well. You know, a lot of people talk about how much, you know, the top brand plant milk is. You could be paying a couple of pounds a carton, but you can also pick up Aldi soy milk, you know, for 59 pence a litre. So it doesn't really get any cheaper than that. And something that Louisianna mentioned a moment ago was the pandemic as well. Now, I know that the Vegan Society have done quite a lot of research into this because the recent pandemic really has led people to question our relationships with animals a bit more.
Well, the pandemic's had a big impact on veganism because there's so many people spending much more time at home. And yes, because of that, they're more likely to be cooking. So the home cooking revolution has happened in a way that hasn't been seen. There's an increase in demand for organic grains and seeds, nuts and flakes. People are coming into the shop and stocking up to an extent that they've never purchased before. But they're also coming back for more, which means they're not only just putting it in the larder, they're actually cooking with it. Yes. Different types of vegan bacon, brownie cakes, mixers, lots of home baking and home cooking is taking place. People have looked at their own immune systems during this pandemic as well, and they're rather concerned. They're looking more closely at their food intake. And the whole of the vegan movement is benefiting from that insight that people want into their bodies.
Yeah, absolutely. And Louisianna, I mentioned the Vegan Society's research into this because I think it showed something like 1 in 5 UK customers had cut down on their, at least their meat consumption during the pandemic.
Yeah, so it's 1 in 5 for meat and 15%, so I believe that's 1 in 8, something like that, in dairy and eggs. And I think people, there was a reason, you know, a variety of reasons, so whether things weren't accessible, whether they were doing it for environmental reasons, etc. I think it's also worth remembering, I think people were questioning why the pandemic has happened, and that you haven't really been able to get away from, well, the supposed reason is that it's become from an animal marketplace. There's still massive psychological barriers for people because it's not in the same country as here, so maybe they can kind of forget about it, but I think it's only a matter of time before people start to really equate that similar things are happening all over the world, and actually why are these things happening, and can I not be a part of that? Can I remove myself from that? Can I go vegan? And it's easier than ever to do so. So I think the ways that people have cut down on certain food products, I think we'll see a big shift continuing, again, for a multitude of reasons. And I think it will be interesting to see how different people's attitudes change as well. So that will be research that we'll continue to do as different things change. And yeah, it will be on our website published within the next few months.
Absolutely. And I think I've seen a preview of some of that. And I think that only 40% said that they were more interested in veganism because of scarcity. They couldn't get hold of a product that they were already having. So it was the vast majority who wasn't just saying because I couldn't get hold of what I usually have.
Yes, so the majority it's for health, environmental and animal rights reasons.
Yeah, absolutely, which is fantastic. So one thing I think it's worth now talking about is who a typical vegan consumer is now, because I think if I'd have said, you know, just 5 years ago, draw me a picture of a vegan, it wouldn't have, you know, I could have guessed what they'd have drawn. I'm sure some sandals would have been involved there somewhere along the way. But now we need to smash those stereotypes a little bit. If we're doing research online and we're looking through various vegan Facebook groups, I'm just as likely to see a post from, say, a vegan builder or someone like that who is complaining about that his lads are stealing all his Oatly and his plant milk. You know, we really have to smash those stereotypes. So, Dan, tell me now, have you seen a change in who vegan consumers are over the last few years?
There's no longer a typical vegan consumer.
Exactly, yes.
They've gone. People you've known for years just happen now to be not only aware of veganism, but you'll speak to somebody and they'll say, oh, I've got a friend, they've gone vegan a couple of years ago. And I've got some relatives and their child's vegan and they've taken the family with them. There isn't a typical vegan customer anymore. That's a simple answer.
Yeah, and I think this is something that I think especially food companies as well really have to link into, that, you know, it's quite often mixed households. So, you know, it's not just the young people who are engaging. They are, as you just said, Dan, they're bringing their families with them. And it's just as likely to be, you know, the middle-aged couple who are battling high cholesterol or something like that, who are looking at moving plant-based. And I think it's also this rise in non-vegan plant-based customers as well. So, you know, a lot of people are buying plant-based products without actually associating with veganism themselves. Is that something you're seeing as well, Dan?
We are indeed. Yes, it is true. You see that the plant-based customer, as you say, is not necessarily vegan or vegetarian, but is looking at the whole range of foods that they're partaking in. And they'll just as easily pop into a shop like ours or order online without feeling anything against us because we have the label vegan. That's irrelevant. But we've often seen a child come in with their family, and later on, we've heard that the family have followed the child's lead. So there's another couple that wouldn't be typical vegan customers, but they've watched what their younger people in the family, not necessarily a 10-year-old, but even a 16 or a 20-year-old. And the parents and the relatives are taking notice of those changes.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time it is a journey, isn't it? You know, people have got so many different entry points to veganism, and this is something a lot of companies haven't quite latched onto yet. You know, a lot of people will see people like Arnold Schwarzenegger go plant-based, or, you know, Venus Williams, you know, these high-performance athletes, and then it becomes a rabbit hole. You know, they'll be online looking just for some vegan cooking recipes, and influencers such as Earthling Ed or Joey Carbstrong, they're kind of waiting there to hijack them a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. So Louisianna, what I want to just move on to a little bit is what actually, vegans are looking for now. Now, I know you're not from the trademark team yourself with the Vegan Society, but the Vegan Society are putting so many products at the moment through trademark registration. It's year on year, you're having to bring more people into your trademark team, and it's an absolutely fantastic state. So what do you think that vegans are wanting at the moment?
In terms of the recent trademark registrations, I think if we're looking at broadly, so not just within food, I know food gets brought up quite a lot. Cosmetics, without a doubt, that's the biggest increase in the things that we're trademarking. Cosmetics aren't really as tied to emotions as food are, or are certainly nowhere near. Food is all about our personal identity. It's like our cultural heritage. So it's trickier to change food habits, but things like cosmetics, when you learn about animal ingredients in cosmetics, I think the average person will not want that and not like that. So I think the whole cosmetics industry is really moving towards the completely vegan route. Even I was in Superdrug the other day, and you just see vegan everywhere, and it's so great to see. For food wise, I know that we've seen a lot of trademark registrations for like Celebration Bakery, so a lot of birthday cakes and things, and I think that's so Bosch have just released theirs, and Oggs as well. They're two really, their branding is just perfect, and it really stands out, and I think there's still so much room in that category, because I think bakery's been a little bit left behind for us, particularly sweet bakery. So I think that area can still be, there's a lot of innovation left to happen in that area.
And that's really interesting, isn't it? Because I think a lot of the people who are buying those products might not actually consider themselves to be vegan themselves. They could be buying it for a vegan family member or a vegan friend.
Certainly, and with celebration cakes, if you're vegan or if your friend's vegan, you're sharing that product with other people, and hopefully might even start a conversation between other people. So it's a nice kind of positive product, which might be a conversation starting point. So yeah, looking forward to seeing more cakes always.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
What about yourselves, Dan? What are the hot products you're selling at the moment?
Well, our best-selling product has always been Sosmix. Now, Sosmix is a powdered sausage mix, which has been now going for almost 4 decades itself. It amazes us how people get in touch and say, I haven't seen it on the shop shelves for 10, 15 years, and I love it, and we still have the original recipe. People can use it to make their own flavored sausages. You can add whatever flavorings you want. You can create yourself, and with this increase in home cooking, Sosmix has never been so popular. We were featured in a national newspaper not so long ago, and it produced 1,000 new customers. Wow. that hadn't seen Sosmix for years. People are still coming across us, but it's the most popular thing that we've had in the shop forever. I mean, to us, it's like a banana or a cucumber is to a supermarket. It's our best seller.
Yeah, I mean, that's bringing together 2 huge trends there as well, isn't it? So it's not just meat replacement or alt meat, as it's been called at the moment, but it's also this move towards home cooking and home baking as well.
Yes. As well as that, the other thing that's taken off is vegan cheeses. You've got Violife's Epic Mature and V-Bite's Applewood. And as soon as we get them in, they're selling. We can't get enough in to keep up with demand. Some weeks, no matter how much we order, it just keeps flying out. So the last sort of 4 months has seen all lines increased. I mean, we went from 12 online orders a day to 75 online orders a day when the pandemic hit. And the fish steaks, or the fishless steaks, the hot dogs, or the no dog hot dogs, or whatever, the duck pieces, the Clive's pies, people are looking for these alternatives. So all those products and more are hot at the moment. There isn't really anything that's not selling too well.
And that's great to hear. And what I'm hearing there is there's a lot of like-for-like products. So products that are aimed at, early vegan converts or people who are just approaching plant-based, that's something, already very familiar to them. And we're seeing that, huge in the marketplace at the moment, that many brands they're veganizing their products, So you mentioned the Applewood, the vegan cheese, and we've seen the vegan Galaxy selling at £3 a bar and completely selling out across the country. So I think if I just went back even a few years ago, if you went to a supermarket, you'd be lucky to find something which you call a vegan burger or a meat replacement. But now you might find 5.
Yes, the supermarkets do have a few. Your vegan shops, your independent vegan shops, have more, and they're the ones that at the moment could do with some support from the vegans that are looking for somewhere to buy those sorts of products.
Absolutely, we could completely echo that, can't we? Louisianna, we've mentioned how you want to see more cakes coming along in the vegan world, and I'm not going to let you forget that for a long time. But we're also seeing some really innovative products where people are coming up with vegan things which we thought we just couldn't get anymore. So Mummy Meags is one of my favorite. They came up with the Chucky egg, which was a vegan cream egg, which is an absolutely amazing product. There's the Roundup by Ananda Foods as well, which is a vegan wagon wheel. So I think we're going to be seeing more of these kind of, like for like products that we just thought we couldn't get anymore as vegans.
Yeah, certainly. And I think as well, more diversification of ingredients is something we're going to be seeing a lot more of in the future. There's been a shift away from soya protein. Pea protein is something which I think is going to become much bigger in the coming years. So Meatless Farms swapped that in May. They swapped their soya to pea. It shortens supply chain as well. We can grow peas in the UK. And in the plant milk sector as well. So historically, soya and almond have been the favourites by far. And now it's oat milk, pea milk as well. People think pea milk is not going to be nice. It is so nice. It's so sweet. I think it's the best swap. And hemp milk. So oat, hemp and pea can all be grown in the UK. That makes it cheaper. It makes it, less air miles. So I think more diversification in sectors which we even think have enough products that we can still go so much further. And it makes it cheaper. And loads of different flavors. There will be something for everyone. There's just going to be a little bit more research and development and a bit more innovation, and eventually we really will have something for everyone if we're not already there already.
That's really interesting, because when you're looking at product saturation at the moment, which we are starting to see in some categories, you look at someone like Oatly. They've had a recent $2 billion valuation, which is absolutely stunning. But your comment there about using pea for making pea milk, you really have to have a USP now to stand out in something like the plant milk marketplace, because as I'm sure Dan can fill us in, this is something where there's been a lot of companies who have been very active for a long time, but they're seeing people like Oatly making such a great go of it at the moment, and they're trying to bring out their own products to match.
Yeah.
There are, but if I can come back to cheese, we've got local cheese here called Tyne cheese, which is so simple in its ingredients, and it's so nice. There's other companies producing artisan cheeses. We don't have to go for the bigger companies. We do sell them all. Make no mistake about it. We do have that stock available, but the smaller companies are still there and need to be looked for and supported. As again, the independents and the smaller companies are certainly making their presence felt. But all these convenience foods are in great demand as a substitute, and they're especially helping the families that have got 1 or 2 vegan members in them, especially if they're trying to convert a family meal or allow somebody to be still part of a family meal when the family hasn't changed yet. And yet is the operative word, isn't it? Because it's a movement that is moving on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a very important point to make, when all these large brands are bringing out their vegan products, because consumers want brands to transition with them. They want to keep buying what they've grown up with and what they're familiar with. But it does tend to squeeze out some of those smaller vegan brands. But I'm guessing one of the great things that we're all now, buying online is you can go hunt down those brands. But those brands really have to give a USP. They have to have something different. I know when I was talking to the Vegan Kind supermarket, Jenna, who's their head buyer there, I know that they're not looking for another vegan snack bar. They've got plenty there. You'd have to have something really stand out to carve a corner in that marketplace.
Definitely. But one of the questions later on in this discussion is, what do we think is going to come next?
Exactly.
So we'll save that for then.
Okay, so Louisianna, just moving beyond foods then, and especially talking about what's becoming a little bit saturated now. When I'm working more through vegan business tribes and promote vegan, we're seeing lots of things like even, vegan dating apps or, vegan directories and these sort of things. And there always is this concern that there's perhaps not enough marketplace. I mean, how many single vegans have we got in the UK to give that sort of platform to have competition in that marketplace? So is this a problem that in some categories there's going to be just too many people going after the same customers?
It's a tricky question to answer because I think I can understand the reasoning behind wanting to do these things, but I can only really understand the reasoning if the founders themselves are vegan. That's where it gets tricky, because if you're going to label yourself as a vegan plumber, for example, just to bring in vegan customers, but if you yourself are not vegan and you don't use, maybe not plumbers, but a painter, if you're not using vegan paints, where does the line get drawn, and how do we regulate these different industries? So it's going to be a tricky one. I think it'll be interesting to see how it moves forward. I think I've seen at least 3 vegan dating apps, to be honest. Yes. So I don't know, maybe that might be an oversaturated market, only 1% of the population at the moment, but more going forward. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I think as long as you're not using the word vegan just to bring in more money, and as long as you're doing it for the right reasons, because you yourself are a vegan and you're using vegan products, and you want to just, some vegans will only go to vegan stores, they won't go to big retailers. Again, we're all individuals, we're all completely different people. There's no completely black and white. There's a lot of grey areas with veganism. Where do you draw your own line? You don't want to make anyone feel like just because they can't spend every penny of their money on vegan, plumbers, painters, etc., that they're not doing the right thing. The definition is to be as practical and as possible and practical. So as far as possible and practical, there you go. So just remember that, and if anyone's watching who is thinking about going vegan, just remember you don't have to go as far as other people. Just start with what you can do, and then take it forward from there. And it's all about keeping it accessible to people as well. So not marginalizing anyone because they feel like they're not going as far as others. So accessibility is still an issue and a barrier. So we want to keep it accessible.
Absolutely. And I think when I'm talking to the larger companies especially, this is something that they don't pick up on. They think that it's binary. You're completely, vegan and out there campaigning, or you're not vegan at all, and you're eating at the fast food chains. But you need to understand that it is a journey which we've all been on. And, Dan's been on it far longer than I have. But when you start out, you might be happy to go into the high street burger chain when you first move over to veganism. But then 6 months down the line or 12 months down the line, you might not even want to walk through the front door of that establishment. And that's something that companies really need to understand. They have to ask themselves, what does a vegan actually want who's been vegan for 12 months compared to someone who's been vegan for 5 years or even 5 decades like Dan. And one thing you mentioned last time we were speaking, Louisianna, was about these very meaty burgers as well that are coming out.
Yes, so I think the very meaty burger industry or market, I think it's easy to think that it's an oversaturated market because how many meaty burgers do you need? But really, when you kind of take a step back, you realize how much more of these things we need to be producing to be replacing the animal products, and it's a lot. So I think we need to scale up businesses. That's what we need. And we need more investment and more support from the government to do this. Whether or not it's just meaty burgers or, those kind of products, but we do need more vegan products. So it might be easy to say that some areas are getting saturated, but because we're all vegans ourselves, we all work in the vegan industry every day. I think sometimes you need to take a step back and look at the reality of the other 99% of the population who would never say that market's saturated because they've probably never even seen it. In reality, there's less than 10 brands making these products. So it's not oversaturated at all. So I would like to see more innovation overall in every category. That's the best way forward.
Fantastic. Now, Dan, a moment ago you talking about ethics as well and the ethical buying. So one thing which a lot of people who make new vegan products, and again, quite often the larger brands who do this, they're tying ethics into veganism. So, you know, some people will think if it's got palm oil in, that a vegan won't buy it, you know, or they really go over the they really go into the ethics to try and win over the vegan customers. I mean, what are we seeing in that sort of marketplace at the moment?
It's the palm oil question's a bit of a minefield because it's become so much of a norm in all production. There's many companies trying to source either alternatives entirely or responsibly sourced palm oil. Where does ethics come into it? Well, just before that, I was going to come in about the, you mentioned the last 50 years. You know, we've all drawn the line somewhere, and it's very important for new people to veganism not to have to worry as to how vegan they are at any particular moment. You have to be comfortable with what you're doing. Whether, you know, I remember back in the 70s, and my dad got a leather seated car. Do you refuse to go in the car? Well, no, you don't. You get on a bus and you're holding a leather strap. You're sitting on a leather seat. You're going cycling and you've got leather toe straps. There weren't alternatives in those days. And in some cases, as you've said, some of the products still haven't been invented or created that can make a full transition more easy. So we've all drawn the line somewhere at some time, but you have to feel comfortable. And I go back to the old Vegetarian Society logo of live and let live. Not only do we have to feel comfortable ourselves, but we have to allow others to feel comfortable with how they are feeling.
Absolutely, that's very well said, Dan, as well. And just, you know, rounding back up specifically on ethics, I think a lot of vegan companies, and truly vegan companies, so, you know, companies which are founded by vegans and run by vegans, they do hold exactly what you've just said to heart. You know, it's very much about getting people onto that journey. But I think also vegan companies are using their ethics as well as way to win people away from big brands. If you take someone like Moo-Free Chocolate, for instance, you know, 20% of their workforce are people with autism. That's a policy that they have to try and employ people who usually have difficulty getting into the workforce. Their factories send zero waste to landfill. You know, so it's these kind of ethics that we're seeing really butting onto vegan products, but it's something that can be hard to get over at point of purchase.
Well, one of our main suppliers is a company that only deals with vegan companies. And we purchase as much as we can from that particular company. But because of the diverse nature of our shop and what we need, we can't give all our business to that one company. It would be nice, but not always possible and practical. But one thing that you can get if you go to the independents, you can get the advice and the help from the vegan community themselves, because you'll probably find that in your vegan business, your vegan staff and owners are the ones with the knowledge to pass on, which is something that unfortunately in the general supermarket field, you won't find the answer to a question or even the ingredients on the label necessarily.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very important to remember as well. Okay, so let's actually move on to you know, the main reason we're talking today. Let's look specifically at new product trends and, you know, what are the new growth areas in veganism at the moment. I'm going to open that one to yourself, Louisianna, first, just because the Vegan Society are supporting so many great initiatives, and you're probably in one of the best places to see what trends are coming to the marketplace. So what are the new product growth areas in veganism at the moment?
So certainly something I touched on a little bit previously. So the sustainable sourcing of ingredients, pea protein, how we've had so many people asking us, give us, you know, we need stats on pea protein, we need more information, and there's a lot of companies using this. This is in milks, to use for meat alternatives, for protein powders. It's really gonna expand in the next few years, and there will be probably British grown peas as well. So that's great for our farming industry as well, because we love farmers, you know, farmers grow our food as well. So we want the British grown farmers, you know, short supply chains. It's just a win-win situation for everyone. I know we spoke before, you mentioned pet food, and I think this is a very interesting topic as well, or category, because it's something that if vegans can struggle with if they have a companion animal and they want to be feeding them healthily, and you know they don't want to be feeding them the typical pet food. So now there's vegan pet foods out there, and I'm not an expert on them, but I have seen really good reviews, and I'm pretty sure all of them are backed up by research because they're probably made by animal lovers themselves. So I don't think they're going to be putting anything out there which is going to be unhealthy. But pet food as well, I think this is where we'll see lab-grown meat probably take over in a few years. I think that is just perfect for the pet food industry, because I still think there'll be a lot of kind of psychological and emotional barriers to that. So we'll see what happens there. But yes, and more, I think what companies need to do is stop guessing about, you know, as I said earlier, who is the typical vegan consumer, because it's like just saying who's the typical consumer. Doesn't mean anything. Just because you put the word vegan there doesn't mean we're all the same person. So we need to be doing more research and not looking at who has stereotypically been the vegan consumer. And this is where we'll find kind of pockets of growth. So perhaps the products with specific health benefits, they, you know, cholesterol or heart benefits, that's an area which I haven't really seen many products in at all, which is a massive area in the non-vegan sphere. So definitely that as well. Yeah, that would be my take on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan, are you stocking any vegan pet food at the moment?
The amount of vegan pet food we've got has risen and risen and risen.
Really?
We've now got a full section devoted to it, whether it's dog chews, potato sticks, wet cat and dog food in cans, or dried bags of cat and dog food. It's there, and it's being asked for more and more often. The last customer before came on the telephone, bought 22 cans for a charity pet that she just rescued that would eat nothing except this one particular type. Bought one can, tested it, and came back in and bought 22 more, all in the same afternoon. No, the pet food is certainly a growth market. If you go into a supermarket anyway, whole aisles are dedicated to animal foodstuffs and other animal products. It's certainly true in our shop. Ready meals, unfortunately or fortunately, depending upon your circumstances, ready meals are taking off. Vegan pizzas, flying out at times, and we've already mentioned cheese, but there's so many ready meals that people are looking for. I think a lot of it might have something to do with the fact that they're not going out so much in the last few months. People aren't going out for meals, so to have a meal created in home for yourself, using the products that you've bought and supplementing it with your veg or whatever, is a slight substitute during the coronavirus problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've hit on a couple of really important points there. You know, the ready meals, that's a case of just normalizing vegan food. So it's no longer anything special. You can just, if you want to be unhealthy, you can just go pick up a microwave meal and put it in there as well. But also with the pet food, I think many vegans, you know, if they take on a companion animal, they will take them from a rescue centre, and that animal will probably have been fed meat its entire life. So it might be a little bit of a problem when moving the animal over to eating something which is a meat alternative. I liked what you said also at the start, Louisianna, that vegans quite often hit this point where they have to make a decision that they've not thought they're going to make before. And that's why I think we're going to see a rise in baby and child as well. You know, lots of newly converted vegans are getting together, they're starting families, and then they're thinking, oh, crikey, you know, I'm going to have to raise my child vegan. You know, is that even safe at the moment?
We do have a dietitian who we work with who does speak to a lot of new mothers, and I believe there's a soya-based formula, but I believe the thing that we try and promote is just breastfeeding. So you'll definitely have to, if anyone's watching this has more questions, speak to my colleague, Heather, the dietitian, because she was a lot more clued up than me. But certainly there is more growth to be done in that area. And I just wanted to mention something about the ready meals as well. My grandmother is vegan herself, and I was with her a couple of weeks ago, and she had a ready meal. It kind of got me thinking that's a whole other market, because she's too old to be cooking home cooked meals. She does eat ready meals a lot, obviously vegan, but a lot of them are unhealthy. So that's, you know, what I was trying to say about not thinking about the typical consumer. There's some people who aren't able to cook meals. So what do they need? And, you know, functional foods, how can veganism bring even more benefits to them in their elderly life, and possibly for people with disabilities as well who are unable to cook. So we need to make sure this food is accessible and healthy as well, and also have the treats as well. But we need to make sure it's really hitting the nutrition points. But that can probably be said for non-vegan ready meals as well. So when vegan food is so much put under the spotlight, I don't think there's anything bad with it, but I think all food needs to be put more under the spotlight. We all need to be more aware of what we're eating, and it needs to be a bigger issue for everyone. And when you that's again something which I hope will make people think about their diets in the future. And I think it is happening. I think a lot of ingredients are in the media more, maybe for their negative effects. Unfortunately, it's usually vegan foods, but well, that was what's happening to the meat industry a few years ago. So it's all power play with how the media works. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that normalizing point again as well, you know, looking at the whole family. So 100%, you know, if you are having young children, if you haven't had a baby and breastfeeding, you know, they always say that's a place to start. Some people can't. And so we are seeing some, some plant-based follow-on milks and formula milks, which are doing very well at the moment. But then just going beyond the food, yesterday I was talking to someone and they've written Vivi the Super Vegan, you know, which is an absolutely fantastic children's book as well. So this education, if we're looking at, 1 in 10 children aren't eating meat at the moment, that's something which is really worthwhile pursuing as well. And then the crossover products. So you mentioned earlier that the whole family might not be vegan, but 1 or 2 of them are. They're bringing people over. And so what I really see as one of the new product growth areas are these products which have been brought out, but just everybody can have. So Goo Puds is a great example of that. When they looked to bring out their vegan range, they decided to go, the entire way with it and made it completely gluten-free, dairy-free, so everybody can have it. They don't necessarily label it vegan. And we're seeing lots more companies doing things like that as well. Okay, so one thing I want to chat about also is moving away from food. So when we're talking about vegan products and when people are saying they're going to start up a vegan business, you always think food because it's probably where you started with veganism yourselves. But we're seeing a real rise in, vegan service industries. So we mentioned earlier, you can get vegan plumbers, vegan travel agents, you can get vegan personal assistants, even, vegan bookkeepers now. So to either of you have got an opinion on this, do you think this is something we're going to see more of? Do you think this is going to be a growth industry?
I know a vegan taxi company, so there's another one to add. And I used in a previous decade, I used to drive for them. So wow. We had 2 vegan drivers, I'm also a school teacher by profession, and it must be great for some of the children these days to be able to link up and know that if that teacher makes it known that they're vegan, have somebody there that they can ask questions of or get support from. I know vegan electricians, so yes, they are appearing. I'm not so sure that the vegan taxi company was set up to be a vegan taxi company, it just became one. But yes, things are moving.
Absolutely. And Louisianna, you talked about scaling up. Do you think we're going to see anybody scaling up these service companies? So are we going to start to see a vegan Uber, for example?
Honestly, I mean, vegan anything is good. It's just, and it brings attention to the movement, doesn't it? The vegan hotel, there's one in Scotland. One of my colleagues stayed there recently. I think it's probably still a little bit above the price point of perhaps the average person. But these places are, eventually it will become cheaper if more places buy these, the bedding, the mattresses, which are vegan. I don't know what you need to possibly even cutlery and plates. I don't know. Animal products are in so many things which shock me nearly every day. But if they're buying these at a premium, and the more places which buy them, the cheaper it gets. The cheaper it gets for everyone. The cheaper it gets for us. So I think, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I would say if you are thinking about doing that, just do a lot of market research first, because there's probably more of these companies which we are even aware of. So yeah, I think a lot of vegans do like the idea of supporting other vegans, because you're just putting more money into the industry, which is great always, but just make sure you're doing it for the right reasons and make sure it's at a price point which is accessible to the vast majority of people.
Absolutely. And I think vegan entertainment has become a huge marketplace as well. I mean, it's not just on Netflix with things like Game Changers, but I think the last two projects I backed on Kickstarter were for vegan comics, you know. So this is something which I think a lot of grassroots activists are getting into now to make documentaries such as Cowspiracy and such as Game Changers as well.
Well, you see references or you hear references on films in soap operas so often now. It's taken as normal that there might be a vegan in that particular setting. I remember watching, and this is just a one-off mind, was I think the Liverbirds in the late 1980s, and a sentence stuck in my mind: you're not actually going to eat that dead, decaying animal flesh stuffed with additives and preservatives. Now, that came out as a normal sentence in that particular sitcom, but for the 10 years before and the 10 years after, I don't think I heard anything like it. So yes, it certainly is appearing and becoming normalized in the same way that we've already said. You're meeting more vegans and veganism is spreading.
Absolutely.
Something I loved particularly was the mockumentary Carnage a couple of years ago. So it was so funny, and I think a lot more. Yeah, I think it was on Channel 4. So possibly a lot of people saw that and didn't even realize it was a mockumentary until they're halfway through it, and suddenly the seed is planted. So I think that's a great way to go about it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's one of the things I would be saying if someone came to me thinking I could do any vegan business, what would I do? Getting into the vegan entertainment industry, you know, especially if it's information as well, you know, is really, you know, a great place to be getting into. So moving beyond that, packaging is also something that we've seen a lot of innovation in over the last couple of years. But it seems that people, you know, develop vegan packaging for vegan products. So if you look at the vegan Galaxy bar, you know, one of the reasons it was £3 a bar was because it had this compostable packaging film, you know, which is absolutely a fantastic thing to develop. But why are we vegans paying for the development of that? You know, why isn't that something that they've rolled out across all their products?
Well, it would be nice to see plastic ditched because it's doing so much harm to the planet. It's also harming the animals and the wildlife that, as vegans or vegetarians, we want to protect and help. And the environment is what that we've got. Much more needs to be done, especially with buying anything. But recent studies have shown that the plastic that we've been dispensing has actually been broken down by various insects and animals and is now appearing in our water and being taken in by the plants, which ironically means that we as a planet are now consuming the plastic that we've ditched. So the recycling and the recyclable materials is absolutely vital to us, to the future, and not only to vegans, but to every walk of life. As you say, not just that one bar of chocolate, but to all. And if the price is a little bit more, then it's something that we have to pay for our planet, for the environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
It goes beyond veganism.
And we've just been joined by Tim at the appropriate moment, because I know that Yoho, the products that you've now got with the sun cream, that's in a glass container instead of a plastic container as well, isn't it, Tim?
Do you know what? That's a good point, and I haven't got it to hand. So you caught me out. Usually I've got it just there to go, yeah, ta-da, and, you know, just here's one I made earlier.
No, absolutely. But
indeed,
the more we say that, the better.
And we responded basically to, you know, we brought out a new sunblock a couple of years ago with a really good tip-top natural base with just zinc oxide. So it was the cleanest sunblock you can make, really. But it was in a plastic bottle, and there was a number of the independent retailers who were interested in the product because it fitted not only their ingredients, but also their price. But, you know, the plastic was an issue. So we put it into a glass jar for this summer. But of course, we've been hampered by the, you know, really, it's just not been the climate for anyone to take on new products. So one or two have, to be fair. And you know, we've had good reactions to it. But it's interesting that people like the choice. And just on that packaging note, I know I've sat with a very versed gentleman, Julian, from Pannell, and we had Adrian from Pannell on a panel earlier Pannell Foods that make the vegan chocolate since 1963. And, you know, Julian's really looked into the packaging issue, really done the rounds about, you know, the carbon footprint for everything. And the trouble with the packaging is that for every plus, there's a minus. And for instance, with glass, it's a lot heavier. So the cost overall for a whole summer of shipping glass jars compared with plastic jars, you've just increased your transport weight costs and such like quite considerably. So, you know, and I know he looked into it for the chocolate packaging, and I heard you just touch on some of those issues about the biodegradability and such like. And of course, what they found is that the packaging had a shorter shelf life than the product. And so these are a really big issues. And then, of course, you've got a human rights issue, because if you look at something like aluminium, which I think mainly is derived from bauxite, if I'm not completely making a fool of myself. And of course, bauxite has a notorious human rights record for the extraction of bauxite. So there are compromises that are very difficult to...
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
You know, and I remember John Bird referring to this from the big issue of the politics of contradiction, where you do one thing, but you know, that's very positive, but in doing so, you have a very negative effect somewhere else. So it is very difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing, you just led us into our final point there, is also that relationship with retailers as well. So one thing I think we're going to see as a trend is where we actually find vegan products as well. So where in a store. So if you go into a supermarket, for instance, at the moment they have, you know, free from aisles and very small sections. But, you know, studies have shown that when a meat replacement product is moved into the meat aisle, the sales rise by about 20-30%. You know, that was a study I think conducted by Kroger who did that. And we're also seeing, you know, plant milk starting to creep into the dairy chiller as well. Is that something you've been looking at the Vegan Society, Louisianna?
Yes, and we do get asked this a fair amount. Unfortunately, not by retailers themselves, but just by some of the companies that we work with. So there's a lot of powers at play within the supermarket, and the key players in the animal agricultural industry probably wouldn't like the vegan products being next to them. But the supermarkets shouldn't be favouring one industry over the other. It should be about their customers and about making sales. That is what a supermarket should be focusing on. The products are so unique in their selling points that in an ideal world, they would be in both the free from and the animal sections. I don't know if that will happen, but it will certainly please everyone, and they'll be making a lot more sales that way. And if there are any retailers watching this, we can conduct the research for you at the Vegan Society, because I think every retailer is so different. Customers are quite brand loyal with supermarkets, whether that's because of their price, their location, the products they stock. So by conducting the research with your customers, you should be able to find the right thing for you. But I think it's a really valid point that you make, that by putting them next to the animal products, they will be driving more sales. It's just then vegans probably won't want to go down there and get them. But then if it's going to make more people buy them, that, as you said, there's no wrong or right. You're not going to please everyone. So I would certainly say do your research, which is specific to your retailer, and you'll get the answer that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's fantastic. Right. Dan, I know that you've got to leave us bang on 3 o'clock. So you're such a popular person. You've got a follow-on appointment straight after this. So I'm just going to wrap up with the questions that we have. So I want to get just off Dan and Louisianna, just 30 seconds. If you were a betting person, what would you bet on to be the next big thing in vegan products?
Well, I'm looking for a crackable vegan egg. A crackable vegan egg for cooking purposes, and I think that would take off. I think it would be a challenge, and I guess somebody already has thought of the idea and it's in preparation somewhere. The other thing that is often in request and demand is a successful Yorkshire pudding. Now, we have fantastic Yorkshire puddings made by a small company called Mabel's. They come to us and then we sell them frozen, and they're cooked frozen. They are really, really popular. But just like we've mentioned earlier, sometimes the price is high. and the price is high of these Yorkshire puddings until they're possibly in a larger production or somebody comes up with a better, cheaper solution. They end up at £1.25 per Yorkshire pudding.
And that's very much
you
the
can buy a
conversation.
pack of 6 of some sort elsewhere in shops that we'll not mention. So I think that's my two betting forecasts.
No, absolutely perfect. And that comes back to what we were talking about vegan companies needing help to scale up. You know, they need to help from moving from the kitchen into their, you know, unit, and then from the business unit into the factory. That's something that a lot of vegan companies need help with. So, Louisianna, what's your bets for the next big thing in vegan products?
Not products specifically, but I would just say more collaborations between vegan businesses. So an amazing example of this recently is the collaboration between the Meatless Farm, One Planet Pizza and Applewood. They've come together to bring the first vegan cheeseburger pizza. Those 3 businesses already had the products, they already had the skills. All they needed to do was combine their expertise. Saves businesses money, it saves time to get onto the shelf, and yeah, more collaborations between businesses, and whether that's with food outlets as well, or manufacturers or brands, just more collaborations. And yeah, let's get the products out quicker. And yeah, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that.
Absolutely. And I'll just round it off by, I think my bet will be more inclusive products as well. So, you know, these crossover products like the Gook Puds, where anyone can have them if they're gluten intolerant or if they're vegan, you know, anyone can have them. And even things like we're seeing with Wicked Kitchen in Tesco is, you know, they don't even mention that they're vegan anymore. They just happen to be plant-based products. And there's some really interesting flavors in there and some really interesting new recipes in there. So I think that's where the market's pushing as well. Right. So that's been absolutely fantastic. So thank you so much for your time today, Dan and Louisianna, for joining us. Now I'm going to hand back to Tim, but Dan, I do know you need to get off, so if you need to get off, please feel free to leave. But Tim, do you want to wrap us up there?
Yeah, I won't keep you more than 1 minute, Dan, except to add that, you know, I've been vegan 36 years, and I joke. Well, I don't joke. I just tell people I still consider myself a novice, because I have the honour of knowing a number of people, yourself included, who've been vegan since, I think you've been vegan since 1969. Am I right? So, you know, you put in more than 5 decades there, and that's been the inspiration. And I know that even you recognise that, you know, we've got a whole history of real pioneers. So I just want to say at this point, and especially with the Vegan Society in Louisiana, you've represented so eloquently there with your input. It was really interesting to listen to, and about how perhaps a good moment to honour those that have come before us, and, you know, to acknowledge the giant, you know, shoulders that we're standing on, and that all the genuine pioneers. And somebody, you know, when you think of like Adrian's father, Arthur Ling, he was vegan in 1926, age 6, 20 years before the word was invented, and was the first person to make plant-based milk out of cabbages in the 50s. And he pioneered biodiesel too in the 50s, so a genuine sort of philanthropist stroke pioneer of this field. So I just take that moment to acknowledge the history we've got, and how good it is to see, you know, both the Vegan Society and, you know, individual gentlemen and individual people like Dan flourishing still. And I know how thrilled people like, you know, Dorothy and Donald Watson, and Leslie Cross, Eva Batt, Kathleen Janaway, and a number of other famous vegans, Elsie Shrigley, how thrilled they would be. Faye, someone, favourite, you know, who wrote the first vegan cookbook, just how thrilled they'd be to see this, this continuity and this flourishing. And if ever there was a trend, we got a trend in plant-based living, where pretty much plant-based is pretty much everywhere. And we've got a trend in ethical veganism, of people who understand veganism from a position, a philosophical position that reflects a rights position, that animals have a right not to be used as property. And that, you know, the fact that both are flourishing is in many parts a testament to the hard work of yourselves. So on that note, thank you. And David, thank you very much. Dan, I've kept you. I know it's 4 minutes past now. So blame me, for just overrunning, for a bit of gratitude if you're late for your next appointment. But I'm genuinely grateful, and I'm sure our number of viewers before now and later will be. If you are viewing, do go and have a look at the stall holders. We've got some great exhibitors. They're in the exhibitors hall. Do come back tomorrow, of course, for the weekend. And thank you to our sponsors, Butte Island Foods and Yo-Yo Hemp Products, for their sponsorship and generous support. So thank you very much, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.